Hello, everyone, and welcome to our January Talk Music webinar. We're glad you're here, and we are very glad that the Horsleys are here with us. As you see, they're here and ready to go, and we're excited to hear from them tonight. I'm so thankful that you guys are here with us, and thanks for taking a night out of your week and just being with us and talking to us tonight. I'm excited to hear from you guys. These are great friends of mine, but I also know they've had a lot of experience, and we can all gain something tonight by listening to what they have to tell us. I love the topic they're going to be talking about tonight, which is talking about growing our church music programs and growing our teams. And I think everybody can gain knowledge from that because we all need that, of course. So I just want to say, too, I know tonight and this week is because of the time. So, of course, there's a lot of people that are going to be there and watching, of course, online. So, but we're glad for anybody that's going to join us tonight. If you can, of course, you can always watch this later. And if you have questions at the end, we'll have some time if you do have any questions. But I just want to kind of let the Horsleys kind of take their liberty tonight. I told them just speak from their heart, talk to us, share with us their experiences. We learn from each other. We learn from just hearing from one another, and that's what I love about these webinars is we get to take time and just listen to one another and to share our ideas. So, brother and sister Horsley, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome in my book, and I'm excited to hear from you. So just relax, take your liberty, and talk to us, and can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Well, Brother Hoffy, thank you so much for asking us. It's an honor to do this. We definitely believe in the UPCI music and support it wholeheartedly. Now, how this works with my wife and I, with you, and oh, by the way, those that are watching, hey, it's great that you're here with us. This is good. We're just we kind of go back and forth with things at times, and if she doesn't like something I say, she'll like hit me and and all that kind of good stuff. And I'll probably butt into whatever she says. Well, sometimes I do, yeah, or probably more than likely, and just throw my ideas in. So we'll just have a good time tonight, and hopefully y'all can get something out of what we're talking about. Do you want to add anything, right? Yeah, okay. Developing a volunteer music department. Really, I don't know that a lot of churches in our movement that have the ability to pay professional musicians and singers. So we're kind of stuck with trying to find volunteers to staff our departments. And sometimes that's difficult because, you never seem like you have enough people, or the people don't want to be involved for whatever reasons. And we're going to hopefully look at a couple of things tonight that we can do to help alleviate that situation. So where do you find your talent? Your talent obviously is going to come from your church. It's just finding those people that you have that are there and pulling them into your department. They say that no one wants to be a part of a sinking ship, and that's very true. If something is not going well, we really don't want to be involved with something like that. But in your departments, if you've got a fire going, people will come to watch something burn. They will come to see a fire. And when you're excited about your department, when you are energized as far as what's going on, you're just super pumped about it. People want to be a part of that. So how do we find our volunteers? What's some ways we can find people that have interest in? A way that we have done this in the past is we basically have a ministry showcase night at the church, and this doesn't have to be just with your music department. This is something that can be, church-wide. Your Sunday school, your youth department, outreach, and basically what would happen is you would take either an evening that you would normally have church, like a Sunday night or a Wednesday, or even after a Sunday or Wednesday service, in a fellowship hall or some place that you would have. Different departments would set up booths, for lack of a better word, or a table, decorated with what would pertain to their ministry, and just showcasing the needs that you have. You know, if the music department, if you're saying, okay, you know, I really need this or this, I need bass players, I need guitar players, I need singers. Um, just sometimes people won't get involved because they don't know that there's a need, or they don't know that you would want them to be involved. There's times that people would say, well, you know, I just don't know if I'm good enough, or, you know, I just didn't really think you needed anybody else up there because you already have a guitar player. So I don't know that you would need someone else. But a way like this, you know, you get to meet people, they get to meet you, you get to express your burden of your ministry, and hopefully they can catch that and they would want to be a part of that. And then obviously with stuff like that, you know, you have your processes that you go through to get someone, you know, qualified to be on your platforms and get them musically where they need to be. But that's a great first step to do to find interest. Uh, Another thing we read about, which I've not had the courage to do this one yet. Uh, we read about this. They passed out things. I think it was in their bulletin. This might have been a denominational church that did this, but it had a piece of paper and it was kind of cut in the shape of a pig. And printed on this was "Squeal on a Singer." And basically, you're sitting in the congregation. If you hear someone around you that's singing and they do a good job, you write their name on this little pig and turn the pig in to the director. Okay, that was "Squealing on a Singer." Like I said, not really kind of done that yet, but it's an idea. Another thing that we could do and that we have done, I'm sure a lot of our churches will do like a new converts class or new converts course. Some kind of a foundations where, you know, they learn basic things that's happening. But at the end of those series of classes, it would be a good time to possibly, you know, give them a questionnaire or something where they could put their interest. You know, do you have an interest in something, a ministry here at the church? You know, are you a musician? Do you play? If you do play an instrument, how long have you played? You know, do you like to sing? Have you sung before in another church? You know, this is finding you know, people that have an interest with things there. Big thing with that though is when you get those questionnaires back and they do have an interest, you've got to make contact with them and let them know that you're interested in them as well. And then, you know, trying to get something together there. Music departments, easy to have a, you know, host a join us night where people that are potential candidates for, you know, like for your choirs or your praise team, have them come and sit in the practice, you know, so they can see what you do. And that way they're kind of seeing or knowing kind of what's involved before they would commit to something. But it gives them a chance to kind of get a feel for things. Ultimately, I think when we're really needing some help with some things, I mean, we pray about it, and you ask God to send the right people in that you need. And actually, that should be really the first thing that we do before these others. Is, you know, God, we want you to bless what we're doing. We need the people to be excellent in our department, and we ask that, you know, you send the people that we need here. And when we get those people, then we can step into a whole, you know, different part, which is training, you know, new musicians, young musicians, singers, things like that, to be able to do what we need to have them do. And with that, I'm going to let my wife take a lot of this because she is not only a fantastic musician, she is a great teacher as well. And having her in the classroom here at Texas Bible College has been just absolutely wonderful. Sometimes we say, oh, you know, it's the team thing here, because you get one, you get the other, and that's true. But in her own right, she is, like I said, just a marvelous musician and a great teacher. So go take it away, Diane.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I do love it. I think you do have to love teaching to probably be really good at it, and I do love it. It's in my heart and definitely part of what I think my ministry is. But I wanted to kind of go back to what Dwayne was saying about nobody wanting to be on a sinking ship, and certainly that is true. This is still the beginning of the year, and so this is a great seminar to look at first of the year, because that's a great time to make changes. So if there are some ideas that you like here, you could still plan them, by the 1st of February and start building your team early. The first of the year is a great time to make changes and add people in. So I think it's timely that we're doing this seminar tonight. But when it comes to training, people do have to be clear about, they have to understand what you're trying to do and that your department is on the right track. So first of all, it's very important to communicate your goals. And I think that's some of what Dwayne was saying, set your department on fire. When there's clear goals, people are on board with what you want to do, and they see that it's effective. They do want to be a part of that. So once you get their interest through one of these other things, then you have to start the training process, which can be painful. At times, it's a blessing and a curse, as they say.
Yeah. Sometimes very painful.
Sometimes very painful, and your ears want to fall off of your head.
They will be assaulted at times.
Yeah, your ears will be assaulted at times, for sure. But this is not, you have to know that this is not going to happen in just a couple months' time. It's you got to stay on course with it. Be consistent is extremely important when it comes to training. Have consistent training. So one of the ways you can do things with new musicians or young ones is to start small combos who meet and start learning together. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, that's going to require more time from you. But setting aside a time where maybe you have some 12 to 14-year-olds that show some interest and also some talent that you can start working with. Start them playing for the children's choir. Give them one song at a time. Help them learn their 4 chords that maybe they can do a song. But it's good to start a small combo together. Maybe you have someone that plays the keys, and the guitar, bass, and drums would be ideal if you had a 4-piece. But if you only had 2, then you start with that. And maybe that will make an 11-year-old be interested in joining. But having combos that start learning together will build another solid team for you. Next, you have to have resources for them to learn their instrument. I can't teach everything. I feel like I know what I want it to sound like, but I can't teach everything because I don't play everything. So when I don't, I think it's important to have someone that they can call or that you can direct them. The UPCI music program gives a lot of training online, and a lot of reasons people don't take lessons is because they can't, the teacher is an hour away, or they don't have time to commit each week. But video lessons are really great, and you can get that, of course, on this website. But finding them a teacher and resources, sometimes they just need an instrument. And a lot of times, I think you can get someone to donate. You say, you can let the church know, hey, there's a 12-year-old that really shows some promise, but they need a beginner bass, or they need a beginner keyboard. Get someone to contribute toward that, or even donate one of their old ones so they have something to practice on. And then also have resources available for them, and don't just leave them flailing or say, well, just learn it, but give them some help in that area. The other thing I think you can do with maybe a little bit more seasoned musician is have them attend rehearsals. And we've done this before. Musicians that have played for a little while are a little bit older, but maybe afraid or don't know what to expect. Have them attend the rehearsal and sit in with your musicians' practice, and maybe they could even play along, but they kind of get an idea of what happens in a rehearsal. Another thing that we've done is letting musicians play along in service with headphones, and they're not heard in the house. So sometimes they can just plug in to their own instrument and hear themselves and kind of play along, or some people don't use in-ears, and they could maybe just plug into their own amp or some way where they're not being heard in the congregation, but they can learn to be practicing along, get the feel of what it feels like in service, because there's nothing that feels like playing when the anointing comes. And I think, to me, that's one of those things that really gets musicians when they start feeling how wonderful the presence of God feels when they're giving something to the Lord. There is not a feeling like that. It's very addictive, and hopefully will keep them, for longevity.
Well, and with that, Diane, I know when I was growing up, our church was small. I didn't have a drummer. I didn't have a bass player there. I'd have to go practice by myself with the church. And it's like, how nice would that have been to have a drummer, have a bass player there at the same time? And you're kind of getting that in the service where you don't have to worry about carrying something. So that is huge as a younger musician trying to learn.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing about musicians and wanting them to learn to play, if you want them to learn it, you have to give them opportunities to play and sing regularly. They can't just learn a song and play once a year and be expected to get better. So you have to provide regular opportunities for these new musicians to be involved in the service. Great times to do that is if your off night is a Tuesday or Wednesday. Perhaps they could play the secondary keyboard on those nights, or you have a second set of drums where they're playing along with the main drummer. These drums could be, they're not mic'd or anything like that, or maybe they play acoustic guitar where it's not, like we said, going to assault someone's ears, but they still get a chance to play. Or put them with the youth choir, or put them with the children's choir, but regular chances to play really up the percentages of people that stick with it and become part of your established team. You want to take
that? That is so important. The older I get, probably the more convinced I am that you have got to start when these kids, when they're small. Children's ministry is so important. And I maybe didn't realize that in my 20s as much as I do now. As a teenager, you go to youth camp, it's easy to worship. It's easy to raise your hands because everyone there's doing it. You want to dance in the spirit? That's great. Everybody there's going crazy. You do that at your home church and you feel very awkward because you may not, you may be the only one doing something like that. This is a reason why I believe that getting kids involved is so important, because when you put kids in an environment, in a children's church situation where it is the norm to be just extravagant with your worship, then that's what they're used to as kids. And children who's used to worshiping, children who's used to singing in the choir, used to sing in children's choir, they grow up to be teenagers. And teenagers that are used to doing that in kids are going to be, as kids, more likely are going to be able to express themselves in worship, be involved in music department, as far as youth music, things like that, because that's what they did before. Those teenagers then that are used to doing that now will grow into young adults. And you then have a young adult who's used to doing this in a youth group, who's used to doing this with their children. So when they get to be, adult age into the main sanctuary, worshiping is not a problem because they've been doing it since they were a little kid. Being involved with your music department, singing instruments, that's no different than what they've done growing up. So starting young, now something like that, it's going to take years to see results from that. Because again, you start with a 5-year-old, he's going to grow up to be a 10-year-old, 15-year-old worshiper, musician, singer. That's going to grow to a 25-year-old worshiper, singer, musician, and then you take their kids and get them in the same cycle. Catching a vision like that, you are never going to be hurting for musicians and singers when you train up. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go. And if this is what they're used to, if this is their norm, then that will be how they always are. you say, well, can kids handle playing in a service or for something? I say, yeah, they will, they can handle that. Now, pardon the personal reference. Our son Ian, he's now 15, but when he was 9 years old, he was in a drum recital, played the drum transcription off of the recording from the song "Nothing Is Impossible." He was 9 years old when he did that. Sounded just like the recording. I mean, yeah, a 9-year-old can do something like that. One of our drummers that we had at our church at North Cities, his name was Micah Medlock. Micah came in. How old was Micah when he first came to North Cities? His family moved from Tennessee. I think he was 11. At 12 years old, we had him playing drums for our main services. Now he was on a rotation, but and I didn't do easy stuff with the choir. I mean, we did some pretty involved stuff, and Micah just was right there with it. So can a 12-year-old do that? Absolutely. Finding the right one is, I see Ronnie Van Cleve. Hey, Ronnie, you were one of my drummers there too. But yes, it will work. Something that we have seen happen, and this is in my wife's home church in Mattoon, Illinois. Brother Dowdy's the pastor there. Sister Dowdy had a vision of training young people. And Sister Dowdy, she believed in education. That's what she lived. And my wife is a product of Sister Dowdy, absolutely. But Sister Dowdy had this idea of young musicians that would be trained. And her daughter Marlo and a friend of hers, Marcia, took Sister Dowdy's idea and organized it. And what they did was they would take young musicians, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever age, and they would put them in these combos, the combos that Diane was talking about earlier. You know, your bass player, your drummer, a singer, this and that, whatever. They would have lessons or classes on their instrument. They would learn. I think would have 7 to 8 songs that they would do, the different combos. And then at the end of the, we'll say, semester or the length of time that they did this, they had a concert. And those combos would play the 7 or 8 songs that they learned at the concert. And it was a big church-wide thing. I mean, it's a big deal. And they're still, I mean, they've been doing this for 10 years. Now, you've got to imagine 10 years of the combos going on. Those kids that started when they were 8 doing this are now 18. And Mattoon does not need musicians. They're not hurting for musicians because this is something they've been ingrained with. A friend of mine was talking to me about, it was actually him and his brother, and he said, you know, when I was young, I played the saxophone, and my pastor came up to me and he said, I want you at every service to have your saxophone, to be on that platform and to play. He said, I don't want you missing a service. This is your job. This is your responsibility. You are supposed to be there on that platform every service playing your saxophone. He said, my brother, same church, same family, same everything, didn't play an instrument. He didn't have that tie. And he said, consequently, you know, years go by, the brother's out of church, the one's not, the one who had the job. Music, playing music in church, that has a way of tying you to church. And there are so many distractions nowadays, and it's so easy to become very uninvolved because, you know, life can get so crazy, get so busy. Please be intentional with getting your kids tied to the church, because they are the future of what we're doing here.
And I always say, if we don't give kids a chance to be involved, kids, you know, teens, the world will provide plenty of opportunities for them to be involved in things that aren't healthy for them. So we should be the ones leading the way in programs like this. And they are so beneficial to building teams. Will it happen overnight? Not when you're using, the littler ones, but we have to give kids a place, because the world certainly will.
Absolutely.
They will take them no matter. And so it's a great way for us to also keep our kids, like he said, tied to the church, involved, and wanting to be involved in a ministry.
Absolutely. Y'all, it's sometimes it's very weary, but my friend Dana Bowman sent me a text the other day, and it was a great time to get this text. So she said she was going to be watching. I don't know if she is or not, but she just simply said, "Remember, be not weary in well doing." And y'all, I know at times it gets hard. You get very weary with it, but in due season you will reap.
Mm-hmm.
And you sow these seeds of teaching young musicians, of training them, training singers. You will reap one day great musicians with things like that. It's going to happen. Again, y'all, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Jeremy, thank you for asking us to be here. And if y'all have any questions, we'd gladly take those.
That's great advice, guys. Everything you're saying, I'm taking notes and writing down things, because this is great. This is what we need to hear, because you guys live it. I'm a believer myself. I love teaching. That's just one of my passions. I love teaching. I love investing. And kind of that's what you're saying is it's an investment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's an investment. Like you said, Diane, it doesn't come overnight. Churches can't be like, well, I'm going to teach a couple lessons and we're going to have 7 musicians next week.
Right.
Probably not.
No.
But and I love what you said about, bringing up Mattoon, Illinois, and just that kind of that model that they've kind of modeled. And like you guys said, they're not really hurting for musicians. They're coming out the woodwork.
Right.
So great words of advice. I wanted to ask you guys something. If anybody has questions, like they said, go ahead and type those in and we'll get those on the screen. I had a question. What do you guys think about, I think I know your answer, but I'd like for others to hear it. What is your thing on what is the importance of a youth band?
Once you start, yeah.
Mattoon
Youth Choir.
I'm a product of that. So I would say 100%. If it weren't for the youth band, I probably would not be sitting here in the same capacity as I am. So when it comes to youth bands, absolutely. I don't know why you wouldn't. I think the value of it could not. I don't know if you could place a value on youth bands, but again, I'm a product of that, and I don't think when I look back, some music and arts programs that I've done in the past, that I used maybe some that were around 9 and 10 even to play for the kids choir, and then I go back to visit, places that I've taught those types of things before, and they're still doing it. Only now they're in a bigger role, not just playing one song, but now they're playing services, or now they're the ones leading the youth band instead of the children's band. I don't see anything wrong with the children's band, quite honestly. And I think if you could have a children's band, and more than one, if you had enough kids to do it, yes, I would highly encourage it. Yes. 100%.
Absolutely. I think I said this on another webinar one time, but our home church here, they do something that it wasn't my wife and I that started it. It was there when we came here, but they have 2 small children's choirs, and I'm talking they have what's called the Junior Jammers and the Mini Melodies. The mini Melodies are literally 3-year-old to 5-year-old. They have their own robes. I'm not joking.
That's great.
And then the Junior Jammers are like 6 to 10, I think it is. But they sing. They get up and they are a choir. But it's just like you're saying, it's them getting in that habit, creating that culture of this is what we do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a cool thing.
It is. Sometimes as a teen, I think when they haven't had that experience before, teen years are so awkward anyway, but trying to get them to raise their hand, a little bit more than that. And like this is sometimes a great feat because they're not used to it. But if you can get them worshiping at 5 and 6, they grow up doing that. They're used to being on the keyboard. They're used to, I hate to say, but it is a little bit of pressure to play an instrument and sing or lead, but they're used to it then by the time they turn 12 and they go into the youth group. And then, wow. you know, what a great youth band you can build from there. And then, then the big church benefits from all of that. You know,
Yep.
they're solid by the time they get out of that.
Okay, that whole thing with the little mini junior jammers, was it? And the
mini melodies.
Okay, one thing that we're also doing with things like that is we are teaching them what it means to be an apostolic Pentecostal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not scared that we're losing that, but we have a separate identity. You know, our worship services are not like everyone else's. And when they're involved like that from that young age, we're showing them what it's like to be an apostolic Pentecostal. Mm-hmm. And, hey, I think it's great. Absolutely.
I do too. And you can't go wrong. There's no doubt. I wanted to ask you guys too, another question. Like I said, if anybody does have questions, just type them in and we'll get you on with the Horsleys. But one question I wanted to ask you guys, if you've seen this or not, because I've seen it a couple times, and I wanted to see what you thought. Have you seen churches that will let or allow a young person, not just a teenager, but even a younger kid, sing in the praise team with a microphone alongside a stronger singer or an adult, just for, like we were talking about, the experience, maybe mic on or off, I'm not sure, but have you seen that done with like a smaller kid and an adult?
Younger, but not, I mean, if we're talking like 6 or 7, or are we talking like 12?
I would probably say more like the 11, 12, that age.
Yeah, I've seen that done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's another example of
absolutely.
Just as long, I mean, you need to have a strong singer beside him just in case. But I mean, I think that's another. Diane, you mentioned it, I think, earlier. I'll never forget being able to play at my home church at the age of around 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. They pulled me out of Sunday school on a Sunday morning. I got to play for an offering special. I'll never forget it, ever. Because the impact it made on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was probably horrible. I don't even know, but
I don't think it really matters, you know. I think the first time I played was just some kind of simple chorus, but it was enough to let me know, hey, this is in my heart and I want to do this more.
Yeah. I hope everyone tonight listening is kind of getting at least inspired to say, you know what, we've got to develop some more. We've got to grow our team. You guys know, you're in this just like I am. A lot of churches will get really comfortable because they'll get 4 or 5 good musicians and they'll be like, hey, we got this, we're good. Yeah. And then 6 months later, everybody's moved and somebody got a job, somebody got married, and we're back to nothing. So my heartbeat, and I know it is yours, we've got to invest.
Yeah.
Musicians, you know, benches, deep, 4 and 5 deep. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I get the whole idea, and I understand why someone would say, you know, I'll use this one drummer, this one bass player, this, one guitar player, and this is our set, house band, and this is who plays for every service. I get that. Believe me, I understand that the whole thing there, because you want it tight, you want it good. But again, when someone gets sick, what's going to happen? When someone does get married. I totally agree there, Jeremy, with you on that. Absolutely.
Making room for everyone.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to make room for everyone. Although, yes, it's painful sometimes, even for me, to have to maybe carry a less experienced drummer, for sure, bass players sometimes as well. Mm-hmm. But the bigger goal here is not my comfort level at that time. The goal here is training.
Yep. Yeah. I can't agree more. You guys, you said something at the very beginning that I wrote down. I wanted to circle back to it, and we'll end with this. You said something about having goals, and then you said something about having clear goals. Mm-hmm. I like that because I think that's so important, that sometimes people don't understand what we want because we don't tell them, or we don't have a plan, or we just kind of like, oh, just jump in there or whatever. I think sometimes people, if I could say it this way, they will respect the department even more and work harder if they know what's expected, what are the requirements, those things. I'm gonna give an example real quick. I kind of, here at our church, I kind of have a a bar, sort of, not a bar of level of ability, but I have a bar in terms of number system. That's just me personally. We use completely all number system on the platform. We don't use chord charts. That's just how we do it here. But that is our system, and everybody knows that here in our church. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's already set. If you want to play at our church, you have to learn numbers. Period. And if you don't, then it's just kind of the way it is. You might have to play somewhere else, because that is the way it is here, is you play with numbers. So anyway, example. We had and I hope he's not watching. I don't think he'll be watching, but it's okay if he does. But we had a family move to our church just within the last year. I found out he played guitar. He came up to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to get involved in the church. I play guitar, this and that." I said, "Okay, great." I said, "I'd be glad to hear you play." And so I said, "Do you know the number system?" And he said, "Well, I know, how they do. I know about it. I know of it." And so I said, "Well, you'll have to learn the number system." I said, "That's one thing that so I explained that to him. Make a long story short, he's been a breath of fresh air, because he's like, okay, he got on YouTube, he got on UPCI Music Ministry. He's like, I'll just learn this. He said, I got to learn it. He has jumped in about 2 or 3 months. He said, okay, he said, let me work on this. And then he said, then I want you to hear me. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he's like, I'm ready. I want you to hear me. And I said, okay. So Wednesday night, I listened to him. I said, okay, let's play some songs. I started calling out numbers. He started playing every change, every number. I was like, this was amazing. I mean, it was great because a person kind of got it. They understood the system. And it just works better, I think, when you have a bar, or you have a clear cut, like you said, goals of this is how it is at our church. Whatever those are for every church is different. But can you talk about that? I mean, to me, this guy has been just like, wow, this is what you want them to do, is not be like, well, I don't like the numbers, I'm not going to do it. This guy just jumped in and said, I'll learn them because I want to play at the church. So what do you think?
Hey, no. Well, again, someone's never going to step up or achieve something unless they know what to shoot for.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely, because people tend to be a little lazy with things, and sometimes musicians are the same way. Hey, I mean, Texas Bible College, our music department, no different than most other music departments. We have students that don't want to practice.
Yeah.
Right.
They one thing I've had to do this last year, saying that we don't have choir practice, or we don't have a musicians practice anymore. We have rehearsals. You come here to rehearse what you've practiced before you get here. And that's taken a while for the musicians to actually get, you mean I have to practice before I come to the rehearsal? Yeah, you have to practice before rehearsal.
Right.
So no, setting those expectations are key.
There's a question here. If you guys can read this, how would you go about giving a new musician constructive criticism without hurting feelings? It's a good question.
Yeah, and I probably get that quite a bit through training. I think I try to start with what they're doing well. And when you're working with new ones, you don't want to hurt them or wound them, to the point that they don't ever want to do it again. That's not the point. You're trying to encourage them to take a further step. So a lot of times with my students, I'll say, there were so many parts of that you did great. Your rhythm was great, or the way you expressed yourself, or I really liked how I really felt the drive come in during that forte section. I could really feel that. One thing maybe why don't you try next time not playing your left hand so heavy? The bass player is already doing that. So instead of playing octave bass line, why don't you try the root in the fifth? And I can help you with that. So when I'm addressing maybe things would I rather say that was really terrible and I wish I would have never heard it. But no, I don't say like that. So I always try to come up first with something they do well. And then when I have a constructive criticism such as that, I have to be willing to help them with that as well. I can't just say, you didn't play that right. Well, what is the answer then? So especially with keyboardists, I'll say, or here, sit and watch me do it once. Or like I said, play the root and fifth. Try not to play the octaves, but I always start with something that they did well. and say, I think what you're doing is great, but I think adding this or subtracting this would make it even one step better.
Yeah,
that's
very good. That's very good. I've always heard anytime you have criticism or constructive, always start it with something good. Put the message in the middle, and then end it with something positive. Of course, that's very good. I hope that helps, Ronnie, to answer your question. That is a great question, because we do need to give advice and constructive criticism if we're going to grow, but you don't want to ever hurt feelings, of course.
Musicians are so sensitive sometimes to start with. I mean, egos, and they get bruised very easily.
Right.
With something like that, Ronnie, I think too, building a relationship with your singers, with your musicians. If they know your heart, if they know that you would not do anything to intentionally hurt them,
very good.
That you only want what's best, and you want to make them better. I mean, here I'm just being really transparent about some things. Sitting in a service, listening to someone preaching about how bad musicians are and how we don't pray enough and how we don't fast enough, and we're all carnal and this and that. Sometimes that's hard to listen to, unless it came from someone like Merle Ewing, who had a background in music. He was a singer. And when he says, you know what, we're not doing this as like we should, I can take that a little easier, because he knows where we were at. He knows where we're at. And I think if you're the people you're working with know that you absolutely want the best for them, that you love them, and you would not do anything to hurt them, but you only want to make them better, I think that would tend to help a little bit with that. So,
that's very good, Dwayne. Very good. You go a long way if you have a relationship. I mean, there's a lot more liberty.
Diane said something the other day, or a couple of years now, I guess, but people won't fall in love and get involved with your programs until they fall in love and get involved with you.
That's very good.
So if they fall in love with you, then they'll follow you anywhere.
Absolutely. I'm reading a question here real quick. I'm just going to read this out loud. Something about, I do agree with about letting youth be involved in music. Started at 9 years old, and because of that, I've sang since then and been involved in music ministry. So it just someone else there saying, look, been doing this since 9 years old, and we've all, I tell everybody, I guess one reason why I have a passion for young people and investing and creating that is someone gave me an opportunity.
Yeah, we're all sitting here because someone gave us a chance.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the future. So, I mean, we've got to, and I think sometimes I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I think we think, well, I wish they would just, learn it. Well, it's not osmosis. You've got to do some things to help them.
Yes. Yeah.
Put some tools in their hands.
Yeah. The investment part.
Yes. I mean, this has been great tonight, guys. Thank you for coming on here. I hope those that are watching have enjoyed it. You guys have really given some great advice. I love you guys' approach, and I think it stems because you're genuine, and that could go that's another webinar. People will follow you and will learn from you if you're a little bit more genuine, and they can, like you said, you got to be likable, first of all.
Yeah, most days.
She is most of the time. I'm struggling with that. I mean, I will have. She's the one that people love.
Well, my wife is the same way. I understand 100%. But thank you guys. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate what you stand for, what you're doing at TBC. You're doing a great job, man. Everything that you guys touch has just been blessed. And glad to have you on tonight, because you come with experience, and I love that. And those of you that are watching tonight, take some of this advice to heart and go home and try some of these things, implement some of these things, and we learn from one another. So that's why we do these webinars. Yeah. You guys want to end with anything you want to say as we close?
Yeah, I encourage you to just do it. It's the beginning of the year. It's a great time to start something, do something this year.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And tell your friends, UPCI Music Ministry, they got to do this. Yeah. I mean, come on.
It's a great resource to help you out.
You got to have this.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it so much. And we look forward to another webinar next month. We'll have another guest on, And I just appreciate everybody logging in tonight. I know it's a busy week, a lot going on, but watch this again sometime if you need to, just kind of remember everything that was said. And thank you guys again for joining us tonight. Thanks, Diane and Dwayne.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching another UPCI Music Ministry video on YouTube. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Also, make sure and subscribe to our channel in order to get the latest content videos and tutorials.